Is the 1st of February 2024. Welcome to Gambakwe Media. My name is Dr. Feddious Mutenheri, and I'm happy to be here after a bit of a break. And I just want to add my 2 cents to what is happening in Zimbabwe. Maybe let me start by saying, analyzing the Zimbabwean situation is not easy, and it's not been made easy by various online and social media platforms, if you like, that have not helped the situation, and you cannot tell what is what, because it seems everyone comments and then you don't necessarily get the clear picture. But today I want to sort of give a picture of what is happening, and our topic in this analysis is the CCC split. It's just history repeating itself. So I want to touch on what I think is the reason behind what we are seeing in the CCC today. And I will end by asking the question, what will be the end, or where are we going from here? Because everyone wants to know what is next, besides waiting for Advocate Nelson Chamisa, who said we will be keeping you posted as to the next steps. But in everyone's mind, the question is, what's going to happen? But look, at first, again, we have to set the record straight that in all this, ZANU-PF has won. ZANU-PF celebrates. In fact, like I was saying yesterday when I was with Gambakwe, this is exactly how ZANU-PF wanted the script to be. So what has happened is we have all forgotten that President Mnangagwa rigged the election, and the records are there in the SADC communique, which clearly said this election was rigged. SADC is a very credible organization. Zimbabwe cannot survive outside of SADC. And even up till now, the question would be, so what's next after Advocate Nelson Chamisa dumped the CCC? Yet it is the CCC that was favored by the report from SADC, the report from the Commonwealth, the report from the European Union observer missions, the Qatar Institute. All those observer missions said President Mnangagwa ran a sham election. And where he sits, he is an illegitimate president. And everyone is quiet now, and everyone is concerned about what is happening in the CCC, the split in the CCC. So it's a sideshow. However, we need to get to the bottom of this. So for me, there are 3 reasons why there is a split in the CCC. Number 1, of course, it's ZANU-PF. It's a creation of ZANU-PF. It's the infiltration by ZANU-PF. It is a strategy by ZANU-PF to make sure that CCC, which is the credible alternative, is decimated, is destroyed, is discredited. So that's point number 1. Number 2, I think it is the internal contradictions within the CCC itself, or within the broader opposition movement. And in this case, obviously, is the CCC, because it is the main opposition. Number 3, and it is very important to note that it is the failure of transition from Morgan Tsvangirai to the next leader, that is Advocate Nelson Chamisa. This transition has literally dragged from 2018, since he died, and up until now, if you look at it, it has not soft-landed. And I will speak on that towards the end. But let's start with the ZANU-PF. I think this is a no-brainer to know that Chabangu is a ZANU-PF project. Is a ZANU-PF project because it is the parliament, ZEC, and the courts of Zimbabwe that were supposed to defend democracy in Zimbabwe. They are the institutions which are supposed to defend democracy in Zimbabwe. But what have they done? Of course, to try and discredit the powerful CCC, because the CCC, since its formation, in fact, it signaled the end of ZANU-PF. They defeated ZANU-PF in the by-elections of March 2022. And that was a big sign for ZANU-PF that the CCC has the support of the people. We saw even in the election of 2023, August, that the CCC garnered more votes than what was published. In fact, all the research houses, the Afrobarometer and others had indicated a CCC victory. And ZANU-PF knew very well that they had to act so that they do not move out of power. So what did they do? They sought to discredit the new strategy that the CCC was taking. We all knew that ZANU-PF was not going to sit down and let the CCC take power just like that. So Chabangu is a creation, is what they created. Once they realized the CCC was going on their strategy of strategic ambiguity, where there was no clear structures which were announced, they sought to use the institutions to make sure that they achieve their goal to destroy the CCC. So it was easy to pick a person from the street, in this case, the imposter, Chabangu. And once Chabangu wrote a letter, it was easy for the institutions, which are supposed to be the guardians of our democracy, to act on ZANU-PF's instructions. Mr. Mdenda, who is the Speaker of Parliament, was quick to act on the letter by Chabangu. ZEC was quick to announce that there is a vacancy in Parliament. And President Mnangagwa was quick to announce dates for by-elections. When the CCC tried to run to court, they found the court waiting for them to say, to in fact support Chabangu. And we have seen all this in the courts all this time. So that is why I am saying it is ZANU-PF's strategy to destroy the CCC, and we should never lose sight of that. Number two, I said it is the internal contradictions that exist in the CCC or in the opposition per se. Now, what do I mean by that? When Nelson Chamisa launched the CCC on the 22nd of January 2022, he clearly enunciated that this was a new political party, that the old had passed. In fact, we can go back to that video, but because tonight I want to keep it short, he clearly said, even the leadership, it's new. He even said, everyone is on an equal standing. We are starting a new thing today. So it meant that anyone who joined on that day had the ability to join the party and be elected into a leadership position. However, the senior people of the MDC Alliance, remember there was the 2019 Congress, they had expected that they would import that leadership into the CCC. And we know that in the meeting prior to the formation or to the launch of the CCC, that became an issue of heated debate. Now, these people expected to import those leadership positions into the CCC. Advocate Nelson Chamisa, on the other hand, proclaimed that no one had positions. Now, I need to make a comment on that in my view, that was a crack which was left unattended. And what did it do? It meant that the CCC was allowed to take off with a very flawed, very flawed foundation. Why do I say so? Politicians, by their nature, they desire power. All politicians, they can tell you anything. They can tell you today that we are here to serve the people, but they desire power and they seek to acquire it and to keep it for good, which ZANU-PF has been doing since 1980. Right, that is the nature of politics. Right, but as a collective, this issue of leadership should have been solved. And I am saying this as a lesson, even as we move forward. Whatever would come in the making, whatever formation would now come, this is an issue that should not be left unattended. Secondly, and which is linked to this first point, the long-serving leaders of the MDC, the MDCT, the likes of Welshman Mnuve, Professor, the likes of Tendai BT, the likes of Wende and others, expected some VIP treatment once the CCC was formed. Did they get this VIP treatment? No, they didn't. But we saw the rising to prominence of young and upcoming leaders, and one might say at that stage they were novice leaders, but they showed themselves that they have the mettle, the likes of Ostalus, the likes of Mahere, and other young people that were preferred by Advocate Nelson Chamisa. And obviously, this created skullduggery in the party. This created a schism. This created that division, which obviously with time was going to show itself. And it is there for everyone to see today. But if one looks at this from another angle, did Advocate Nelson Chamisa have to trust these so-called senior leaders? Did he? The likes of Welshman Mnuve. Now, we know that Welshman Mnuve was the author of this first split in the MDC against the all-powerful Morgan Tsvangirai, the doyen of democracy. No one would have ever thought that someone would go against Morgan Tsvangirai. But in 2005, because of the Senate election, we saw Welshman Mnuve splitting the party and going largely with the people from Matabeleland. And I'm going to speak about that. And we have to face this truth. Remember, my topic is this, what is happening in the CCC. It is history repeating itself. This will help us to know what is happening. Analyzing what is happening in the CCC by what is happening on a day-to-day basis can give us a fuzzy picture, a facade picture of exactly what is happening. So, Welshman Mnuve split was the first person to split the opposition when he moved away from Tsvangirai. And here it's up to you, the listener, to decide whether you think Welshman was wrong and Morgan Tsvangirai was right, or vice versa. But what we know is that the person with the political currency at that time, the person with the support, with the charisma, who was the face of the democratic movement, was none other than Morgan Richard Tsvangirai. Now, move on to 2013. After the defeat in the 2013 election, we saw Tendai Biti and a group of other leaders such as Mangoma clamoring for leadership renewal. In fact, they accused Morgan Tsvangirai of leadership failure, and they said that was the reason why MDCT had been defeated in the 2013 elections. Remember, we were just from the GNU, and they expected to benefit or to harvest from what they had done in the GNU, basically to give the people of Zimbabwe a reprieve. So Tendai Biti once again split the MDCT, which Morgan Tsvangirai had tried to rebuild from that split of 2005. So did Advocate Nelson Chamisa have to trust these people? Did he have to trust them in the Triple C? Is one question, especially when you look at his strategy, where he said this Triple C was a new party in which new leaders were going to be elected, right? But there is also another thing I want to highlight now, that in all these splits, remember in 2014, I could go in 2014, Job Sikala went on also to split from Welshman Ncube, because in 2005, Welshman Ncube had gone with the likes of Job Sikala. But in 2014, Job Sikala split to form his MDC 99. And the rest is history. We all know about that. I'm saying this about Job Sikala because I would like to speak about him, because all these characters, all these actors, all these individuals are part and parcel of the confusion that we see in the Triple C today. So my point was, of all these men that I've spoken about, and of course I would talk about Madam Thokozani Kupe and her role, of all these men who, if you would like, betrayed Morgan Tsvangirai, or who split from Morgan Tsvangirai, there is only one man who stood on principle, even as things were not going his direction. And this person is none other than Advocate Nelson Chamisa. At one point, he lost to Douglas Monzora, in an election, and people expected him to walk away from the MDC, but he did not. He stayed put. He waited his turn. Now, having said that, I want to come. So these basically are some of the contradictions that I'm talking about within the opposition movement. But I'll speak more about these contradictions. Now, let me come to the death of Morgan Tsvangirai. He was the doyen of democracy, and may his soul rest in peace. And in fact, this is the month of his death, on the 14th of February. And I'm sure those in the democratic movement will be remembering his death. Now, come to the death of Morgan Tsvangirai. It was a moment of identifying a man or a woman that had the charisma of Morgan Tsvangirai. It was a time, an opportunity to rebuild the democratic movement, because his death also signaled a death knell to the democratic movement. So the time had come. Who would lead the democratic movement? Jostling occurred. We know the Thokozani Kupe debacle, but everyone settled on Advocate Nelson Chamisa. And once again, these players, particularly Professor Welshman Ncube, Tendai Biti, were part and parcel In fact, in their own admissions, they were called by Morgan Tsvangirai. They were called. That's what they said. And they were told that I'm leaving you with the young man, Nelson Chamisa, to lead this struggle. And true to that, Nelson Chamisa rose after the death of Morgan Tsvangirai to be that charismatic leader that the opposition wanted. Full of energy, he rejuvenated the base. He galvanized the people, and there was new energy. And there is no doubt that he is gifted in speaking to the issues that Zimbabwe faced then, which they face today. And even the MDCT became much better under Nelson Chamisa than it was, and we saw that in the statistics that in the election of 2028, the next election, President Nelson Chamisa was more popular than the MDCT itself. So that alone shows you that he was the charismatic leader that the democratic movement needed. But did this go down well with everyone? Well, let me footnote something here. The transition from Morgan Tsvangirai, in hindsight, has not been solved and has not been easy. This speaks to the issue of succession, which, even as we move forward, should be an issue that should be attended to. ZANU-PF is bedeviled with the same issue because there's never been any succession plan. The MDCT suffered it. In fact, we are in the throes of that crisis of succession. Why do I say so? While under Morgan Tsvangirai, it would have been easy to identify who is the next leader. He did not also put in place a clear path which would probably reduce the fights that we are seeing. So this transitional issue is with us, and I'm going to show you at the end how we are with this transitional issue and probably proffer some solutions as we seek a way forward with Advocate Nelson Chamisa. Under Morgan Tsvangirai, the party battled with internal contradictions as well. Remember, under President Morgan Tsvangirai, the contradictions included ideological. It was a grouping, in fact, that was composed of people of different ideological underpinnings. There were the socialists, the likes of Gwisai. There were the trade unionists, where President Tsvangirai came from. There were the workers. I mean the workers, the trade unionists, the students rather. There were the students where Advocate Nelson Chamisa was coming from, and others. But we also saw that the other contradictions, and I'm returning to the issue that I spoke about, was that of the tribal card. And whether we like it or not, we saw it play out in 2005. And I know it is a very painful issue to talk about, but as long as we do not confront that issue, that tribalism is a contradiction that has always existed and has been a contradiction in the democratic movement, we will not understand what is happening in the CCC, and we will not be able to solve what is happening in the CCC. And I'm not saying in totality it is tribalism, but it is one of those issues that we should look at. We saw Professor Washman Ncube took a major part of the Ndebele side to a point in which the MDCN led by Washman Ncube was said to be a tribal party because it only garnered much of its support in the Matabeleland regions. But of course, to footnote all the contradictions or the fights within the opposition, ZANU-PF is always there, is always within to gaslight to fan the fires so that the problem becomes worse. Now, that was under Morgan Tsvangirai. Now, fast forward to the Triple C. The fight, in my opinion again, is multifaceted. Is multifaceted in that it takes all the other issues that were in the Morgan Tsvangirai movement. But what is more clearer now is that it is obviously a battle between what can I say? I mean, for a lack of a better phrase, the gatekeepers, those who view themselves as the authors of the democratic movement, and you can't exclude the likes of Welshman Ncube, Tendai BT, and the other old guard. So what we are seeing is the battle between the old guard and the young, to a larger extent, and that needs to be confronted. It is a battle between those in the trade union and those in the state, in the student movement. But this, we largely saw it when Monzora left, because he took the larger part of the trade unionists and left what he calls the student movement, right? But again, under the Triple C, again, the tribal contradiction is coming to the fore. In fact, if you have followed Chabangu's pronunciations and how he has gone about the whole issue of dividing the Triple C, his major grievance is that us, we the people of Matabeleland, we had people imposed from other provinces. That's what he has said. And it is clear. And we are told, and actually we know, that the double candidates that happened in 2023 were based on that tribal card, in which the so-called people of Matabeleland or of Bulawayo were crying and saying, other tribes have come to take positions in Matabeleland. And that is an issue that has to be tackled and confronted. I know I risk here being attacked, but one would say Bulawayo is the second capital city of Zimbabwe. And by that very nature, it should not be treated in tribal lenses. As far as I know, in various other places, whether it's Gweru or Mashingo, they are Ndebele leaders that we grew up knowing. They are Ndebele leaders in various positions in the public service and everywhere. And in as much as I'm not trying to discredit the grievances that the people of Matabeleland may have, but that contradiction in the Triple C needed or still need to be confronted. Because even as you see the gathering of groupings in the Triple C, you can see that the tribal card is at the center as well. But obviously, there is a battle of egos in the Triple C, and it is playing out with others who think that they are more educated, especially within the legal fraternity guys, the likes of Tendai Biti, thinking that they are better, they are more erudite probably than Advocate Nelson Chamisa, who they treat as a novice. That is why he said in that leaked audio, Anga chapera egawe, you could see you could hear the condescending voice, which meant that you have no one that is advising you. We are the ones. The likes of Welshman Ncube. And remember, he is the lawyer that helped to save the Bulawayo 12 that were banned by ZANU-PF. And he showed what he is capable of. In fact, whether that was by design or whatever, but it was a show of force of who he is in that party, that he managed to rescue the 12 seats that were almost stolen by ZANU-PF. So those contradictions exist in the Triple C. But in the end, there is consensus. It could be silent consensus, but it is consensus that there is only one face of this struggle, the struggle of democracy. And that face is Advocate Nelson Chamisa. There is no doubt about it. And I'm sure there is no doubt in all these people who are jostling to take. That is why even Sengezo Shabangu had the shame of proclaiming to us all that they are running away with Advocate Nelson Chamisa's face. That Advocate Nelson Chamisa's face is intellectual property. It's laughable, actually. And knowing ZANU-PF and our corrupted institutions, they can run away with that, and they can make it legal. They can even make it jurisprudence. That yes, Nelson Chamisa, you cannot use your face in any other political party. What a shame. But the point that is there is that they realize that Nelson Chamisa is the face of this struggle. Now, like I said, I don't want to make it longer. It is already longer. How will this end? How will this end? I mean, if one has followed Zimbabwean politics, I mean, since independence, you would know that even before independence, you would know that the Zimbabwean politics is defined by big men. I don't know if I should say also big women, but we haven't seen some. Though some have tried to come up, like Womaim Juru, Margaret Dongo, and others, strong women, Thokozani Kupe, and others. But it is defined by strong men. It is the politics of big men. And we are not likely to move away from that. And what do I mean by that? I mean also that once, basically, let me say, it is difficult in Zimbabwe to create your own political party from the ground and garner support of the majority of Zimbabweans. Other people tried it. Since independence, I would pick on a few of them, like Edgar Tekere, but he did not even reach where Morgan Tsvangirai reached. We can talk of Margaret Dongo. She tried it, but she did not even get to where Morgan Tsvangirai got. But ever since Morgan Tsvangirai created what became the major opposition party in Zimbabwe. And after Morgan Tsvangirai, the only other person that has done it is Advocate Nelson Chamisa. But make no mistake, I'm not saying the help of other comrades was not needed. It was needed. But now that is where my point is. Do these other comrades recognize that in politics, it is exactly that? Do you have the political currency to galvanize the people? Let's look at Welshman Ncube. Did he manage anything since 2005? No, he didn't. We know that his MDC Green just died like that, or it remained a tribal party. Tendai Biti and his PDP, did it see the light of day? No, it didn't. No, it didn't. The only period where these political parties survived, like the PDP, is when there were recalls and they got to have some few members of parliament in parliament, but courtesy of the vote under the MDCT. His party died a natural death. Job Sikala formed MDC 99. What became of it? So there is no doubt that there is consensus that Advocate Nelson Chamisa is the face of the democratic struggle in Zimbabwe. And I say this not as a supporter of him, but looking at the reality of our politics. Now, having said that, I want to end with what I've been seeing happening, and just make a comment and probably proffer some few words as a way forward. Job Sikala came out of prison, and Zimbabwe is happy. And in fact, it is, I mean, naturally, it should have been a victory for democracy, a victory for the democratic movement. However, I am very worried with the pronouncements that Job Sikala has been making. And I think he should be forgiven that. Obviously, it is early in his release. He is angry, and you can see that anger seething out of him to a point where he is discrediting even those that supported him. One wonders what kind of support he expected. And knowing very well the creature that ZANU-PF is, I wonder what kind of support did he want to get. So I think close advisors or those that can help him should advise him that probably it's time he definitely takes a hiatus of social media, a hiatus of the public, and take reflection, which he has admitted he needs to do anyway. And he takes a retreat and look back. In fact, he will find that he will, by doing that, he will not end up hurting those that love him. Obviously, we can see that he is aiming towards forming a political party, and at this moment he is feeling more like Nelson Mandela. He is he has got that you can feel it when he is talking, that he feels that he has made an icon out of himself. But the Zim politics does not operate that way. It does not operate that way. Job Sikala should read the politics. He should know better that the politics of Zimbabwe right now, as we stand, they are centered around Advocate Nelson Chamisa. That's why ZANU-PF is creating press conferences centered around a man that has dumped the Triple C, who is not even talking. That's why everybody now is coming up. Tendai Bit is coming up to say, I am a proud vice president of the Triple C based on the MDC Alliance elections. A lawyer, it's a bit laughable where he's getting that, but you can already see what he is trying to do. We can see that Washman Nube is already starting to also work out whatever he can work out, hoping that they will take the Triple C. Obviously, one thing that will happen is that in the next 5 years, they will look to benefiting from the trinkets, benefiting from whatever comes out of their presence in parliament. But we all know that come election time, the electorate will punish them. And Job Sikala should stand guided. Basically, what I have been saying as a way of recap is that all we are seeing is a repetition of the history. But everybody awaits what Advocate Nelson Chamisa is going to say from here. I know he has been lambasted left, right, and center that he has not given direction to the people as to where we are where we are going. The parliamentarians, they don't know what to do, and all that kind of stuff. But I want to believe in so doing as well, it has exposed those within the politics that Advocate Nelson Chamisa is trying to create, who are bent on benefits rather than on saving the people. That exposure is necessary. That exposure is necessary. However, I should also sound advice and say, as we look forward to whatever is forming, or as Advocate Nelson Chamisa looks forward to forming another movement or a movement, it is important to take into cognizance the lessons that have been learned over the years. Those lessons are important. Those lessons are paramount, because ZANU-PF, whether you bring whatever strategy to the table, they will create an opposing force. They will only work to discredit it. Look, ZANU-PF does not worry about the economic crisis. The economic crisis in Zimbabwe are a feeding trough for ZANU-PF. They enjoy this crisis. So that's why they have slept. They've gone to sleep about development in Zimbabwe. Right now, the talk is by-elections. In a day or two, we are going for by-elections, and probably more of them after that. That's what ZANU-PF is concerned about. They are happy to fork out money and channel it to illegal and unnecessary by-elections at the expense of the people, of the real issues of education, of healthcare, of eroded livelihoods. I mean, you name them. That's ZANU-PF for you. So we need to learn those lessons. Those lessons are important, and it is better to put all of them into consideration as we look forward to the new formation, because whatever we can put up as a movement, ZANU-PF, using state machinery, is prepared to decimate, to destroy it. So therefore, this is a advice to as we go on to the next chapter. But also, the democratic movement should be reminded that difference in opinion, difference in strategy does not mean division. And there is always need to remember that to keep unity is much better. You can be united in those differences. That is what is called unity in diversity. And that is important. And I think our democratic movement needs to quickly learn that concept of politics and shun away from the ZANU-PF politics if ever there is a hope to create a new Zimbabwe. Now, probably I will look at one or two comments in order to, before I close, because I've already taken too much time. Okay, Chamisa, that is Farai Nyika. Farai Nyika says, Chamisa is the man. Ticharwa, the sooner you accept this reality, the less chest pains for you. Okay, all right, I hear you, Farai Nyika. Let me just look for some comments here. This is Tanatsiwa. He says the lesson that history had given us is people will never learn from history. That is true. I totally agree with you, Tanatsiwa. Sometimes, you know, the hype of the moment especially tend to move these politicians. When they see a group of 50 supporters around them, they think they own the world. I mean, the likes of Job Sikala can learn from that. Now, sorry, I wanted to see this guy who, I don't agree with this one. Let me hear. Kingdom Vumi, I don't agree with this one-sided analysis. You're missing the point, Doc. I think you could have told me which one-sided analysis you are talking about. I think I tried to touch on both sides. Even today, and like what I always do, I've tried to show where the Triple C have have not done well and where they could do better. Right. Nkululeko is full of praises of me. True doctor. He says, true doctor, best analysis. Thank you very much. I think those are my views. Others may hold different views. That I mean, let me hear what is trending updates saying. No, let me tell you trending updates. Hanzi uyu anotaura zvine musoro Tanita naGambakwe. Gambakwe is a man of good analysis. I followed him. That is why I'm always on his platform. I think he raises very important questions which actually trigger very good debates most of the times. Let me hear what James Kudzanai Chiwombori is saying. He says, Job Sikala has been fed with wrong information by the likes of Hopo Chingono. They tell him that his stay in prison has made him the next Mandela. We also may not know if there were no deals cut between him and the regime when he was inside. We don't know. We will never know, James. We will never know, James. But I think to Job Sikala, people can tell him he's still angry. Obviously, coming from the jail, he's fresh from the jail, and we know how it feels to be in Chikurubi. And obviously, people should forgive him. I'm sure he'll get to his senses before he thinks that he is Nelson Mandela or Barack Obama. Thank you very much. I think I've been here for the longest time. I will be waiting. Tomorrow morning, you will be having Gambakwe, the man, to talk to you. But as for tonight, I think I'm done. Thank you very much, and have a very good night. Thank you.